From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for December 17, 2025. The official funeral service for the injured Dr. Jimmy Cliff OM will be held at the National Indoor Sports Centre in Kingston on Wednesday, December 17, 2025. The reggae icon was accorded an official funeral in recognition of his immense contribution to Jamaica's culture and entertainment. I recently caught up with New York media executive Louis Lou Grant to reflect on the life and legacy of reggae icon Jimmy Cliff. Grant is a walking encyclopedia of Jamaican music and sports, widely respected across business, broadcast media, and entertainment circles. He remains integral to the growth of the Caribbean media landscape in New York. With nearly 30 years in media, Grant currently serves as Executive Vice President and Executive Producer at Irie Jam Media.
From Somerton, St. James, Jamaica, passing through London, England, stopping at Sao Paulo, Brazil, on the way to the rest of the world, Jimmy Cliff navigated his many rivers to cross. Today, I welcome you to this farewell event, an official celebration of a well-lived life which will feature the music for which Jimmy was known and to which he dedicated his life. It is not the typical service that is held after a person's passing. Jimmy didn't want a sad or somber occasion. He wanted a celebration of his life, and we're honoring his memory and his wishes.
Today I join Jamaica and the entire world as we celebrate and also bid farewell to one of our cultural ambassadors, one of our greatest, James Chambers, popularly known as Jimmy Cliff. Jimmy Cliff occupies a special place in Jamaica's popular music tradition. His unique tenor voice, with its tremendous range, was a true gift, beautiful, powerful, and unmistakably his own. No one sounded like Jimmy Cliff. He was a great songwriter and performer. His impact on the culture of our island home cannot be discussed without honoring the film, The Harder They Come, a work of art that played a very influential role in carrying our culture to the world. Jimmy Cliff, of course, starred in that movie, and he delivered a performance so natural, so authentic, so convincing that it has helped guarantee the film's timelessness.
Today we pause, not simply because a great artist has passed, but because a great soul has completed his earthly journey. We pause to honor a man whose voice, music, and spirit carried his nation far beyond its shores, long before the world truly knew our name. Today we honor the Honorable James Jimmy Cliff Chambers Order of Merit, a cultural giant, a pioneer, and one of the most important builders of Jamaica's global identity. Jimmy Cliff was more than a singer. He was more than a songwriter. He was more than an actor. He was more than a performer. Jimmy Cliff was a messenger, one who carried the story of this small island with all its struggles, resilience, faith, and beauty to the widest possible audience, and ensured that Jamaica was heard, recognized, and respected. From humble beginnings, Jimmy rose at a time when Jamaican music was still searching for international recognition. There were no established paths, no guarantees of acceptance, and no assurance that the world would listen. Yet, through talent, courage, and unwavering belief in his craft, he broke through barriers that once seemed immovable.
Prime Minister Dr. Luke Mercelina, speaking at the COM press briefing on Wednesday on December 17th, 2025, informed about matters concerning national and regional security matters and also important governance and institutional developments and some key diplomatic engagements undertaken in the interest of Sint Maarten and the wider kingdom. First of all, let's start with the travel to the Netherlands that took place from the 6th to the 13th of December. This month, in this travel mission, I engage in a few high-level meetings focused on kingdom cooperation, security, and governance.
First of all, the security issues that has been discussed with the Prime Minister, Mr. Dick Schoof, in the Netherlands. A central focus of my meeting with the Prime Minister Schoof was the national security, of course, particularly in light of the recent rise in, I will say, organized crime activity in Sint Maarten. I raised serious concerns regarding recent incidents affecting local businesses, residents, and visitors, including the robberies that took place recently in Divie Little Bay, Simpson Bay, and the Maho area. In close coordination with the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Minister Nathalie Tacklin, we requested a temporary military assistance from the Netherlands. This request was a precautionary and supportive measure intended to, one, strengthen visible security presence at strategic locations, secondly, to support our KPSM and local law enforcement, and thirdly, to safeguard public safety and confidence. These concerns have been formally conveyed in to the Dutch Minister of Defense and the Dutch Minister of Justice. Let me be very clear in this case. The safety and the security of our citizens and visitors is our highest priority at this particular moment. We are acting decisively, responsibly, and in full coordination with our kingdom partners. I wish to acknowledge the proactive leadership of Minister Nathalie Tacklin in this case. And secondly, also, I would like to commend and thank the cooperation and the engagement and the discipline of the KPSM. And thirdly, the undersigned and cooperation shown by the Netherlands particularly. I would like to thank the Prime Minister, Minister Dick Schoof of the Netherlands, for his understanding of the local ongoing situation concerning the increase in criminality. Concerning now the topic of regional security developments, during my engagement we also discussed regional security developments including recent United States military activity in the Caribbean. It was confirmed that the Netherlands, and of course the Kingdom, is not involved in the US operations. And of course, the activities that are taking place as initiative of the United States are all taking place outside the territorial waters of the Kingdom, and there is at this particular moment no immediate and direct threat to St. Martin, Aruba, Curacao, or the wider Kingdom. Following my bilateral meeting, I joined Prime Minister Mike Eamon and the Prime Minister of Curacao, Mr. Gilmar Pisas, for a regular Kingdom security briefing with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Van Wil. Our deliberations took place while I was there in the Netherlands, and we focused on developments between the United States, of course, and Venezuela via this virtual meeting. Once again, it is and it was confirmed that while we will continue monitoring continuously the case that is going on here with the increasing tension in the Caribbean, and we are, of course, prepared. There is not, at this particular moment, an immediate threat for the Dutch Caribbean. I wish to reassure the people of St. Martin that we will, of course, remain vigilant, prepared, and fully coordinated with our Kingdom partners. Concerning also the Inter-Expo Kingdom Relations Congress that took place in Den Haag, the following. I delivered there a presentation at the 36th Inter-Expo Kingdom Relations Congress entitled 15 Years of Constitutional Autonomy. In my address, I emphasized on St. Martin not being a country, but a constituent state. I was very open and direct in that, for the Kingdom to realize that we are actually calling ourselves a country, but actually still we are a constituent state in the Kingdom. Secondly, I emphasized on the fact that nation building is complex and costly for a small island state like St. Martin. And thirdly, autonomy and independence cannot be pursued in isolation. And fourthly, strong institutions and regional cooperation are essential for our resilience. And also the context of the Kingdom and the mindset around the Kingdom has to change if we want to have an effective Kingdom for the future for all the islands in the Kingdom. For that, of course, I'm going to seek for my vision support by the Council of Ministers and also by Parliament to actually formally invite the Netherlands, Aruba, and Curacao and the Netherlands, of course, to a Kingdom Summit aimed at developing a new, positive, and forward-looking agenda for the Kingdom and, of course, for our Kingdom relations. In the nearby future, I will give follow-up on my initiative to see how we can start with a yearly Kingdom Summit, to see how we can better the relationships in the Kingdom.
Public meeting of Parliament regarding several question hours from MP Doran directed to the Minister Grisha Heiliger Martin on the reconstruction of the Philipsburg marketplace and support displaced vendors. The Minister extended to MPs in the House of Parliament on Tuesday, December 16th, 2025.
The independent project management firm engaged for the marketplace reconstruction project is Angelique Properties BV, with the full acknowledgement of the Ministry of VRAMI. The firm's scope of services includes contract administration, including the review and approval of drawings prior to submissions to VRAMI, assessment of material submittals and variation, interim payment certificates, technical and quality oversight through weekly site inspections, commissioning and handover, health, safety, and environmental monitoring in accordance with the FIDIC Yellow Book, and a review of the bill of quantities, including advice on cost implications. Angelique Property BV reports directly to the Ministry of TIAT, and the documentation that can be provided to Parliament on a confidential basis is the assignment letter, which I think I already submitted to members of Parliament, through you, Madam Chair Lady. Question 7, the Ministry confirmed the existence of a verified list of displaced vendors. How many vendors are there on the verified list, and what eligible criteria were applied? On the list, we have a total of 54 vendors, and they have been categorized in 3 areas. Area 1, which is Old Fire Station between Back Street and Canagita Street. Area 2, behind the courthouse between the Front Street and Back Street. And Area 3, the Great Bay area, more so along the boardwalk. We cross-referenced this list internally with the Department of IETA, Economic Licenses and Receivers Office, and before and again after the vendors were displaced. The total amount that are displaced right now is R33. So with reference to the criteria, one of the criteria that applied that the vendors must have is a license to operate in Area 1, Old Fire Station, which is between Back Street and Street, which is clearly stated on their respective licenses. And that, again, like I stated before, is a total of 33. Question 8. The Ministry indicated that vendors' fees will be waived during the reconstruction period. Can the Minister confirm whether these fee waivers have already commenced? And if not, when will they begin? Yes, the fee waiver process has already commenced. Question 9, does the Ministry intend to apply the fee waiver retroactively? Specifically, will vendors be refunded to credited for fees already paid during the period they were displaced, or will the waiver apply only moving forward? Yes, the fee waivers will be applied retroactively. Upon research with the Receiver's Office, we can confirm, however, that the vendors that have been displayed did not pay their fees during the time or date. So what is the average monthly vendor fee, and what is the total value of fees now being granted to displaced vendors? The annual fee is 1,200 guilders. Typically, vendors would make a monthly payment of 100 guilders, which is equal to 1,200 guilders, and by the end of the year. Question 11, based on the anticipated construction duration, what is the total projected value of the financial relief associated with the fee waivers? So the total projected value of the financial relief is approximately 18,800 guilders. So that's 33 vendors multiplied by the 1,200 guilders multiplied by 3 for 3 years. In your written response, you indicated that the Ministry of TIAT, in close consultation with the Ministry of Finance, is exploring additional options for relief for the displaced vendors. Can the Minister provide an update on what options have been explored since then and the results of these discussions? At this point in time, we cannot disclose the additional relief options as still being explored. In addition, we did inform the vendors that said additional relief options would be mentioned to them first, and therefore once we provide them with this update and receive their feedback, only then can we share this with the members of Parliament. Question 13. Based on your press briefing on November 5th, 2025, a meeting with the vendors took place on October 27th. What was the feedback received from the vendors during the meeting, and what concerns or recommendations were presented to the Ministry? The Ministry met with the marketplace vendors to present the final design of the new facility and discuss the relief process and provide a project update. The feedback received was generally positive. Vendors expressed appreciation for the improvement in the design of the ventilation and the additional restrooms, which they felt would enhance both their working environment and the visitor experience. The main concerns raised related to the practical matters, ensuring that the booths remain simple to operate and that the construction timeline is communicated clearly so that they can plan their businesses accordingly. The ministry also reaffirmed its commitment to continue to keep the vendors informed throughout the process. Overall, the meeting confirmed vendor support for the revised design. Question 14, has the ministry conducted any form of quick scan, rapid assessment, or preliminary estimate of the revenue losses vendors have experienced since being displaced? If so, can we get an overview? Note, the ministry has not done a quick scan, but what we did do, we have one-on-one discussions with the vendors on their challenges and realities they face. And they have mentioned and pointed out that some of the visitors who wish to purchase would like to do so by card, not cash. Special request was made for assistance with acquiring a POS, a point of sale machine. And we are currently in discussion with the bank to assist the vendors with this so that their chances of sales can increase during 2025-2026.
Jeff Greenup, the Executive Vice President and co-founder of the Enrollment Advisory Group in the United States. The Enrollment Advisory Group has been in existence since 2017. I worked over 30 years in higher education admissions, so in 2017, my business partner and I created the Enrollment Advisory Group to assist colleges and universities in the United States with recruiting international students.
In the United States, the Enrollment Advisory Group has been in existence since 2017. I worked over 30 years in higher education admissions. So in 2017, my business partner and I created the Enrollment Advisory Group to assist colleges and universities in the United States with recruiting international students. I have been coming to St. Martin for over 25 years. I was affiliated with Johnson & Wales University prior, who had an agreement with the University of St. Martin. We have a great alumni base here. I have a lot of good friends that are in St. Martin. I'm from St. Martin. So I've been coming, and my main goal and our main goal as a company is to help students find a way to study in the U.S. It can be a daunting challenge to a parent, and if the right advice is given and people give the right assistance, it can become less challenging and more attainable to more students, and that's what our goal is. I've been successful doing it through work with study finance. Basically, we try to match government scholarship funding through study finance. So if a student gets study finance, my institutions, for the most part, will match up to a certain amount, up to maybe the $18,000 that study finance currently gives. So I work with the minister, I work with the Department of Study Finance to maximize scholarship opportunities for students from St. Martin to study at any of the schools that I'm working with. What's key, I visited Learning Unlimited today, CIA today, I'll be at St. Dominic tomorrow, Milton Peters, and what I try to tell parents is not any one school is perfect for a student. The student has to find the school that they're going to be happiest at as their first thing, and some people call it best fit. So that's where will they be happy, where do they fit in, then the academic integrity of the school and the student's academic history, and then ultimately finances come in and play the biggest role in the parent's life, but not so much the student's life. And if they go to where they're going to be happy and they can graduate in 4 years, typically we find that the students do very well at all of my schools, but specifically I'm based in Fort Lauderdale. So when they go to school in Florida, they do extremely well. It's close to home, but far enough away. But my schools are Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, William Patterson University in New Jersey, University of Bridgeport in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Colorado Mesa in the state of Colorado, and Hartwick College in Albany, New York. So we have a good mix of schools in certain areas, always working with new schools that want to expand their international enrollment, and love coming every year to St. Martin and look forward to meeting as many people as possible over the next couple of years.
SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SZV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
More on MP Omar Otley on the Parliament regarding the Initiative National Ordinance, amending on admission and expulsion from St. Martin.
To the 2022 census. In 2022, according to the census, our population was 41,901. If we take a look at these figures, a large portion of the demographic, 67.2%, are foreign-born persons. This is an alarming eye-opener in our country. Please note that since 2022, it has estimated our population has increased along with the percentage of undocumented persons or foreign-born persons. With this amount of foreign-born persons, it is expected that childbirth will occur. Now, foreign-born persons does not equate undocumented, but the reality is the majority of our population are foreign-born. So what happens now when a child be born here of foreign-born persons without the right documentation? And then the child identity is left solely to the responsibility of the parent to ensure that everything is documented and submitted. However, as stated in my previous slide, there are situations within our very own school system where the parents don't even submit the proper documentation to the schools, much less submit to the government year in and year out. The current legislation. So we move to permission to reside. It is granted by operation of law, by temporary and indefinite permit, except for all Dutch people born in Curaçao, St. Martin, Bonaire, St. Eustatia, Saba, Dutch citizens, born in Aruba before January 1st, 1986, who had either placed residence in Curaçao, St. Martin, Statia, Saba, on January 1st, 1986. The children of the Dutch people mentioned under A and B are exempted. Article 3, the National Ordinance regulating admissions and expulsions from St. Martin defines who may be eligible for residency based on operations of law. Article 3I creates a provision for persons born in St. Martin to receive residency by operation of law once they have reached the age of 16 and have been continuously admitted to St. Martin since birth. Today I'm here to explain my purpose of the amendment to this particular article and why myself and my faction believe it is important to address through the proposed legislative amendment presented to you today. Before moving to the next slide, take a look at the word that is bold, continuously admitted to St. Martin since birth. All right. Prior to 2020, the application of this article was understood that continuously admitted meant to have valid residency permit. Then once 16, the child will receive permission by operations of law. Very important. Prior to 2020, the applications of this article was understood that continuously admitted meant to have valid residency. Then once 16, the child, right, received permission, operation of law. In 2020, the then Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, took the decision to apply the humanitarian clause in the LTU to grant residency by operation of law to minors born on St. Martin to foreign nationals who were undocumented and the fault of their parents. This is already an unwritten policy that has been implemented in 2020, and every minister since has operated by it, including the current minister is operating by this policy. So, where was I? Operation by law to minors born in St. Martin to foreign nationals who are undocumented to the fault of the parent. In order to provide these young adults with some formal documentation, identity, sense of belonging, and self-worth. This unwritten policy has been applied in all incoming governments. Today is our official attempt to make this unwritten policy law and ensure that the rights of our children born here are protected while applying the required conditions to protect our country. Based on our current legislation, children born in St. Martin of non-Dutch parents must apply for a temporary or indefinite permit for the child. However, if an undocumented foreign national who resides in St. Martin has a child born here, the child can remain undocumented. In addition, documented foreign nationals must adhere to permit requirements and application procedures, where oftentimes, due to the fault of the parents, sometimes the employer, it is not done in a timely manner. This is factual. This was proven again during our task force, where the Minister of VSI, Minister of TEAT, and Minister of Justice realized that many undocumented persons were not properly registered and up to date due to whether the fault of the parent or indeed the employer.
Prime Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Mercelina, speaking to members of Parliament regarding St. Martin's national strategy for fuel diversification, LNG transition, public utilities, and the implementation of community benefits.
Question number 10, has the concessionaire agreed to the required contributions for public street lighting and solar rechargeable equipment at key sporting facilities? And if so, what is the implementation timeline? Question 11 also, I add to it, and I will give answer to all three questions. Question 11 is what support has been secured for strengthening independent operation and resilience at the Roll Sport Complex, Jose Lake, John Cooper, Lane Sport Fields, and Phillipsburg Sports Auditorium. And the other question is, have any generators or supplemental equipment been donated or allocated to these facilities as instructed in the motion? The answer to question 10, 11, and 12 are the following. The status of discussions and implementation regarding contribution, concessions, and equipment for the sporting facilities is as follows. Prior to the passing of Mr. Washington, the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Mrs. Melissa Gums, was in conversation with Mr. Washington regarding potential concessions and projects related to the schools and sporting facilities. However, since his passing, no further discussion have been taken place between the Ministry and NVGB regarding support measure, reduced rates for sporting facilities, or the agreement required to advance the matters referenced in these questions. Question 13, can the government provide Parliament with a regular progress report required under the motion, including reasonable outcome timelines and milestones? The answer on question 13 is the current focus of government is on grid stabilization and consistent provision of electricity. Therefore, no progress report as required under the motion have been compiled to date. Question 14, what are the next steps and phase plans for regional leadership, transitional implementation, and community benefit associated with the nation's shift towards LNG and broader energy sector reform? The answer to question 14 is the following. Once again, the current focus of government is on grid stabilization and consistent provision of electricity. Therefore, no progress report as required under the motion has been compiled to date. Question 15, what is the government's vision and policy framework to ensure that these energy reforms are implemented equitable and sustainable for the benefit of all residents? The answer to this question 15 is the vision is to bring stability and sustainability and affordable to the energy supply in St. Martin. Part of the effort to support sustainability will include investment in the renewable alternative energy sources. Madam Chair, these have been the answers to the 15 questions posed. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't even say disappointed. I'll actually use the term that I think it's not important to this government. But we'll continue moving forward. And I have one question, Madam Chair Lady, just one for the Prime Minister. I've heard the mention of solar numerous times. If the Prime Minister is aware how much square meters of solar panels we need for 1 megawatt, just one. And then if the Prime Minister could tell me where we'll get that land from moving forward.
I'll be brief. Honorable Prime Minister, you mentioned BTP. I'm asking what legislative trajectory are you using to ensure BTP has oversight over GEBE? Also, Madam Chair, through you, to the Honorable Minister of TEAT, I saw an article once that stated you are looking into LNG for the harbor. What is the update of this? I stand to be corrected, but I look up the article. It says the Minister of TEAT will look into LNG. And the last but not least, is there any, what was the feedback from GEBE as it pertains to LNG? I understand that it states LNG is more costly than the fuel, but at the moment we are using more diesel, which is, the diesel is more expensive than the LNG. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Pila Cruz, the following. At this particular moment, we are going through so many serious problems in the community, especially with our energy supply for our country. Considering the challenges that we have in this country also to guarantee not only stability but sustainability of energy for the people of St. Martin. To be very honest with you, this is at this particular moment, the last thing that I'm thinking on now is to what name I'm going to give GB. I will have that space the moment that I feel more comfortable with guaranteeing the society which I form part of, that there is more sustainability and actually stability of energy. But of course, it's an old-fashioned name that doesn't cover the GEB of nowadays. And of course, it's something for us to consider in the future. And you're right, it's a little outdated name, but that does not have my priority at this particular moment. Madam Chair, La Cruz, MP La Cruz also gave me, asked me 2 questions about, that I said there were technical questions about how many square meters of solar panel we need to produce 1 megawatt. In the meantime, I got the answer, and it's 5,000 square meters of solar panel you need to actually generate 1 megawatt of energy. And the surface land that they are planning to occupy for the solar panels is until now coming from existing rooftops, parking lots, and about 1 to 2 hectares of land. That is what we are busy with. And more details about the land, I still have to give you an answer on that one.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your MySXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social and health insurances.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has condemned the U.S. decision to impose a blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers from Venezuela, calling it a grotesque threat. President Donald Trump's order marks a sharp escalation in his administration's campaign against Maduro. Last week, the U.S. seized a tanker off Venezuela's coast. Al Jazeera News.
To Venezuela, where the President Nicolas Maduro has condemned the U.S. decision to impose a blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers from Venezuela, calling it a grotesque threat. President Donald Trump's order marks a sharp escalation in his administration's campaign against Maduro. Last week, the U.S. seized a tanker off Venezuela's coast. Washington has increased its military presence in the Pacific and in the Caribbean as part of a crackdown on drug smuggling. The U.S. is the second largest buyer of Venezuelan crude oil after China. Maduro accuses Trump of trying to take over the country's resources.
We tell the people of the United States our truth, and it is very clear. Imperialism and the Nazi fascist right wing want to colonize Venezuela to take our wealth: oil, gas, gold, iron, aluminum, and other minerals. We have sworn to defend our homeland. And in Venezuela, peace will prevail, along with stability and shared happiness for our people.
Rosalind Jordan wraps up developments from Washington, D.C. now.
Well, obviously, the Trump administration's pressure campaign on the government of President Nicolas Maduro continues. The U.S. has, as you noted, boarded a tanker in the past week. The Venezuelan government has now complained to the UN Security Council about what it says was a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty, given that this vessel was part of the Venezuelan oil ministry. This is a case where a couple of dozen or so oil tankers apparently are on a sanctions list, and theoretically the U.S. is threatening to impound them and prevent them from traveling from one port to another, but that's not spelled out in this Trump posting on his personal social media platform. There's also the fact that even though Venezuela is heavily dependent upon its oil exports, only a small amount of that oil, less than 10%, actually comes to the United States. The bulk of Venezuelan oil sales are to China. And so this is going to raise, a more, complicated question. If the U.S. is going to be enforcing a sort of embargo now on Venezuelan oil imports, what does that mean for the relationship between the United States and China? There's also the question of the practicality. How do you actually enforce it? Yes, there is an aircraft carrier group, the USS Gerald Ford, in the Caribbean, in the Caribbean/Atlantic Ocean. But what about in the Pacific? Are there actual plans on hand to actually have the U.S. military enforce this embargo? We don't know. And then there's the final point that was brought up in this very lengthy post by the U.S. president, declaring the Venezuelan regime, in quotes, a foreign terrorist organization. Usually that kind of designation in the United States, which comes with a lot of travel sanctions and asset impoundments and other legal maneuvers, usually comes after a lengthy government review of whether there should be basically a freeze on all of these activities in the United States by a foreign organization or government. We don't know that that has happened in the case of the Maduro government, but there it is on Truth Social.